All right, we are now live. Hi, this is the SOS podcast. I'm one third of the SOS, Tenzin, and we have our guest, author slash martial arts instructor Noel Plaugher. Plaugher or Plaugher?
Plaugher.
Plaugher. All right.
No worries.
Was your name like? Was your name ever used in an immature manner, like in middle school? Like,
Oh, it was used in
oh,
an
it's
immature
no
manner last
Plaugher.
week. Yeah, it's
I know
constantly
that's
used.
like when I heard Plogger, I just felt like I don't know why. My mind went straight to like, yeah, Plogger.
Oh,
I
yeah,
straight
totally.
Plogger last night.
Yeah. No, it's a tough. My whole name there, as you can see, is that's a tough one on the first day of school. You know.
Oh, the teacher like Ploffer. Ugh.
Oh well, the my first name too. That everyone says Noel, right? So
Right, I made that mistake when I
yeah,
met.
I get that all the time. Sometimes I even answer to it because I just forget because I hear it so often. But and it's it's an honest mistake. If they've someone's known me for 20 years and then they say it, I know they're just messing with me. But no, I don't hang too much on the name other than it's like wow, that's a tough one to go through life with.
Hmm, I feel that. Look, my last name. Yeah, you would like my last name is Offutt. Okay, Offit. So that's weird enough because people are like, "What the fuck is that?" And then
Is
also,
that that's French, isn't it?
it's actually British. I looked it up. I was hoping to get
Oh,
like
okay.
French or some sort or like Nigerian or something, but nope, I got British. Boom.
Oh,
Oh. So the basically the people who owned me were British. So yeah, they were of British descent. So
oh, okay. I thought it was going to be like Ofe.
you know what? Who knows? Maybe we who I can legally change it to be that pronunciation. Like put the little whatever accent mark over the U. So who knows? Ofe, whatever. That would have been dope. But anyway, enough about silly old me. We're here with
Silly names.
Noel Plaugher, who, like I said, was a martial arts instructor, now author. So, what was the what was the fighting style that you trained in?
So the one I did the longest was a Chinese style called Shoshu, and then I did Xingyi Xuan, and
Uh,
I've been doing that for a long time, and that's that's the one probably spend the most time with.
can you spell that out for us in the chat?
Yeah, you want to write it in the chat? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
there's
should
a
like
lot of
look on the comments. Yeah,
different spellings of it, but so I'll you also see it this way.
King Yi Chuan, Xing Yi Chuan.
Each
Oh,
one. Yeah. So it's form mind boxing. It's a internal style. So the other two internal styles that are sort of in that little triad are Bagua and Tai Chi.
and what were the origins of these styles?
Chinese boxing styles, they're considered internal styles, meaning that they work with internal strength development. They're more internal, being that you use whole body power as opposed to so you try to use your body and your mind, all everything integrated together, as opposed to just maybe trying to have a really hard punch with a because you've done a lot of weights and so your
Right.
arms are big, and so so less external. That's a really, I'm sure anyone watching this that knows anything is going to probably have a problem with that definition, but that's the most easiest way I can differentiate it, I think. So
Okay. So when you say like an inner strength, like what? Like was like you said like mental? You said.
internal, we get into a weird area. So you could say chi or intention. I would probably choose to say more intention these days. whereas before I was probably more thinking chi. But in the end, it's going to have the same thing, sort of just using your mind and body together. Sort of like all the meditative qualities you associate with Tai Chi and
Right.
all those benefits. So all
Mhm.
those internal styles have them. They just express them a little differently. But they all that's probably the easiest way to like sum it all up.
Right. So would you say that your style is like Tai Chi faster? Because I know like Tai Chi is like very slow movements. Like
Yeah, you could think of it. I was trying to think of it. Yeah, it's more if you look at it, it looks like I did an article on it a while ago. I shake my head every time I think of how many years it was, but I did one for Kung Fu magazine back in I don't know 2017, I think, or 2018,
Kung Fu.
and yeah, Kung Fu magazine,
Magazine.
and I don't know if yeah, well, it's still now it's online. Kung Fu slash Tai Chi was the name of the magazine.
Okay.
Um,
That's straight to the
and
point.
yeah, and then I was trying to think and my friend was helping me, Richard Trammell, who's a great martial artist, and I was showing him what we were going to be doing for the article because he would always help me out with my article and be like the opponent, right? And and after a while, because he'd been a boxer as well, and he was like, I would show him something. He's all, "That's a straight. That's a hook. That's a cross." You know, it's like, and it
Right.
was like they. So when you look at it, it looks like Western boxing with just some internal meditative exercises kind of attached to it. That would if you looked at it, that's most people that I've shown it to or that have seen me do it or taught it, and they're kind of like, it's like it's not as far out there as it may sound.
Right. It's almost like hmm, it's like language in a sense, right? Because we're all saying the same thing, but in a different way. Like, you know what I mean? I can be speaking Cantonese, you can be speaking Italian. We're both saying I'm hungry. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Although we don't understand each other.
Still right. We're still getting to that point. Because you were trained, to name that attack, whatever that was, but the boxer's calling it, yeah, that's a jab, that's a hook. So that's
Yeah, sort of
like
like
these styles. We all got the same goal: beat the other person down.
yeah, it's sort of like a hip throw. I mean, I've never. I was trying to think. I was watching some Greco-Roman wrestling,
Mm,
and you know,
that's
a hip throw is a hip throw is a hip throw, whether it's judo or Greco-Roman or karate or it doesn't. Hip throw is a hip throw, and I think probably everyone has a subtle, has their own name for it, whether it be from another
right.
language or strategically they'll call it something, but inevitably it's a hip throw. So uh, and that's kind of like I think I said when we first met. I was saying the more I've learned about martial arts, the more commonality I see as opposed to
Right.
differences. My friend does Japanese hard styles, and there's so
When
much of what he
you
does.
say
I'm
hard
like,
style, what is that?
yeah, so there's hard styles and there's soft styles. So using the internal styles, you definitely think of those as like soft, being that they get the energy by being soft, and then hard at the point of contact.
Uh,
Hard styles tend to look like more like karate. You probably associate it more with like karate. So but the theory of how they get power it ends up being the same. It's just two different
mm,
ways of getting there.
right.
Yeah. So, like I said, I learned so much by watching my friends' classes and watching him teach and hearing him teach and all that. I learned so much that I was like, oh my God, this is so similar, And I hadn't
Uh,
seen a lot other than similar,
Big John says
styles to
his
my
kids
own.
are doing MMA.
What's that?
Big John in the chat says his kids are doing MMA.
Yeah, that's probably that's probably the most popular thing to do nowadays, right? Next to Brazilian jiu-jitsu and
So like what so like have you ever like done competitions for Xing Yishuan? like
I've
demonstrations or anything like that?
yeah, I did. I did one years ago just for I did the staff form just because I wanted something to practice. I was gonna do one this weekend, but I actually something came up and I can't do it. Um, but yeah, and they have weapons forms, they have open hand forms. Um, there's a lot of
When you say open
similar
hand
to.
forms, it's like no fist, like you just smacking each other. Like
Yeah, so open hand would
it's
be,
kind of like the
or I'm sorry,
pancake, right?
I'm sorry, like empty. I'm sorry, I should have said empty hand.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, empty hand. So weapon forms, you always have a weapon. Empty hand means no weapon. Doesn't
Okay. When you're
yeah,
doing,
it doesn't yeah, it doesn't mean your hand is like this or like this. It means there's no weapon in it.
okay, gotcha.
So empty hand would be that. You figure uh most styles have weapons, right? They have like a weapons thing, and then the motion is very similar. It's just you got a weapon in your hand, right? So it's helps you train because the weapon's an extension of your body, so it helps you to train your body more usually with a weapon than with an empty hand. They go together. I wouldn't say one or the other. They go together.
Okay. So like how do they judge those? Like well you're just doing a form like you never well like yeah, like so like you do your form or whatever, your demonstration. Like how like what do the judges base that on? Like accuracy or like the
Uh,
movement? Like what
It depends if they're familiar with it. So I guess. I mean, I don't know a lot about the judging aspects of it, and I haven't done a lot of competition. But generally, like I basically did it because I wanted something to practice, a reason to practice, and then to go out and do it, right? So
right.
that I had like some sort of like it was a little project for myself. So I would remember the form because when I moved here, I couldn't take lessons from that teacher anymore. So I wanted
Oh,
to
okay. So you're okay, so you live here now. Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to study that. I wanted to make sure I had that like locked in. And then I wanted to have a reason to do it. I really didn't expect that I would do much with it because I mean most people have never heard of it. So I'm sure
Right.
they've never seen it. So how would they really judge it? So all I could hope for was just, you do the best you can with it, you
Mm.
know.
'Cause I remember in your talk at MomoCon you said like a lot of times it was just easier to just say karate because that's just like
Yeah, well,
the
think about it.
new. You know what I mean? So even though you're not really teaching karate, you're just like it's fuck it karate.
Yeah, well, you think about it. If I threw Xing Yi Chuan on the window, people are going to be like, "Isn't that dish with those little pancakes and the plum sauce?"
Right.
Right? They're not going to know what that is. And I mean, it's esoteric to people in martial arts. Like, there's a lot of martial artists that have never heard of it. When I was working for Black Belt, I interviewed one person that studied that style. So out of all the people I
Wow,
talked to
that's
quite a
like
few.
that's a really niche style.
One guy, yeah, and of course we went off for a long time. Really, because it's like running into somebody that is into the same band you're into. That's maybe kind of obscure, right?
Right.
So you kind of like instantly are like, oh wow, that's great. But yeah, it's so what I found was more beneficial actually was just to teach it and not say anything about it. Just teach it. So a lot of the times I would be teaching that and I just wouldn't say what it was because it didn't really matter. It's uh, sort of like when you're a kid and your mom makes you dinner and
Mhm.
she just kind of puts it in front of you. You can ask what it is, although it never looked like the picture, right? It never looked like the recipe picture. But and they can tell you, but it doesn't necessarily matter that that's what you're going to do, right? So um, that's one way, as I've found, is rather than give a history of something or try to establish what something is just show it. And
Mhm.
if you're showing it because it's got some kind of benefit, then that should outweigh anything else, right? And then later, if someone wants to know, then you can tell them, right? And then
Right.
they're interested. Hey, what is that? That seemed kind of strange. What is that? Or
Mhm.
that seemed like such and such. Is that like such? You know, I mean, then it's a little different. Uh,
So so at MomoCon, you did go over myths, and there's a myth that I think you did answer for me, but I forgot what the answer was, so I get to ask it again.
okay.
When you started, when you started your, when you started instructing, did you have to defeat every other instructor within the district just so you can open? Because that's what they did on It Man. So I just wonder if.
No, it's no, and there's something that no, matter of fact, I remember when I opened my school, a guy came in and uh you know, I didn't know what to expect. I was in there by myself and I'd only been open for like a week or something, and I didn't know what to expect. And guy walked in and you know, things like that do run through your mind, right? And then, but he just wanted to welcome me to the neighborhood. So he had a school not far away, and that's generally what people do. Yeah. So I don't think anyone's doing anything like that.
Oh man, It Man lied to me. Gosh.
No, and then again, maybe back in the day, back there, I
Yeah,
don't.
you're right to be a teacher. Like, all right, you
Yeah,
can keep
I mean,
that.
but then we get into a lot of, you know, whoever writes history, right? So I tell you what, it's a much more enjoyable movie with that in it
Right.
than
Yeah.
if it wasn't in
Yeah.
it, right? It's sort of like if you've ever seen Braveheart and then you hear Mel Gibson talk about Braveheart, and like pretty much the only thing that was accurate was there was a guy named William Wallace, and that was
Ah,
about it.
that's
The
how I
rest-
feel about Gladiators. Like, even though that movie was inaccurate as hell, so I was like, well, I still like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you have to separate between, you know, like when I see based on a true story, I mean, I'm assuming that they are elaborating and making it fun. I mean, otherwise you're not
Right.
going to
Yeah.
watch it. Why would you watch it?
I mean, they had to fill in the gap somehow. So,
Right.
and another thing I liked about your talk was just like, you're just going over belief and how, like, like, just to be basic about it, like, I thought what Steven Seagal was doing was Aikido, but he said it was a different style,
No,
like at
he's
least
doing
some
it.
students,
No,
like,
he's doing Aikido.
oh, okay. No, it
Yeah.
was Chuck Norris who said had like a different, like, all these years. I just believe he was
Yeah.
doing karate, but all of a sudden, like, Tong Sudo, you said it
Tong
was.
Sudo. Yeah, Tong Sudo. Yeah,
I was like, what?
that's his, yeah, that was his original style. Um, and yeah, it kind of goes back to what we call things, right? It's
Right.
you know,
Well,
if
like, as
you
you said, like, everybody's generally an honest person, so we're just gonna state what we believe is true, and it's like we ain't trying to lie to you necessarily, but it's like,
well, you also have to remember it in the end, it's not like he misrepresented himself, right? I mean,
right. He's
it's
still
not like
good.
he, yeah, it's not like he wasn't, you know, he isn't a great martial artist or something. He's awesome, right? He can bench press the world, right?
Right.
So that's what I think that's one of those quotes, right? Chuck Norris
Oh
doesn't,
yeah, he's just
yeah,
like,
he doesn't bench press weights. He bench presses the world, something like that. I can't remember how
right.
it goes, but yeah, and when I was growing up, he was it. I mean, he was it.
I
There was
mean, when I was
there
younger, I
was
used to
nobody
like
better.
Walker Texas Ranger. Like this was my kid brain. I was just like, all right, I'm gonna just sit through all this lame talking stuff. Ooh, the fights,
Right. Well, that was the benefit of being able to at first get like you'd get the DVDs and you could just fast forward to the fight scenes,
Mhm.
right? Or you know, then now and of course later with streaming you could DVR it, right? And then you could like fast forward through it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he's he was probably the most influential martial artist when I was growing up, because that was, you know, Bruce Lee had already been dead for a while,
Right.
and the guy that was making movies was Chuck Norris, and that was, you know, there was like seemed like there was a new movie every 6 months, pretty much. I think for the first couple of years there was.
Oh damn, I
Um,
was just shitting them out.
yeah, yeah. If you look at, and the interesting thing about his stuff is I really, it wasn't until I went back and did like a retrospective on his movies and things that you realize that, because like I think I mentioned in that talk, like my father loved his movies. He took me to one of his movies, and I didn't ask. He just wanted to go see it. And then my mom was really into him. And it's like, okay, neither one of them had any martial arts inclinations or frame of reference or anything. But he was very instrumental, I think, in taking the idea of not having specific martial art movies where it's, the head teacher gets killed and they're avenging him or something, or,
Right.
or people are walking in and they throw down or whatever. He took it and put it into action contexts that people were familiar with, like The Secret Agent. Like if you watch Good Guys Were Black, he was a secret agent, right?
Right.
Or trucker movies were really popular, right? There was Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit. Truck movies were really popular. So he did Breaker, Breaker Breaker. He did secret agent movies like, Eye for an Eye. He was a detective, sort of Dirty Harry-ish.
Right.
So he kind of interjected what he did, which made him unique, right? Because nobody else was doing that. Like John Wayne wasn't doing flying kicks, and neither was, and neither was.
I mean, Humphrey Bogart used to swing punches, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, and that worked. Pugilism was the main type of action that people were familiar with when it came to a fight. Was people were familiar with pugilism. So when you introduced martial arts into it, and I don't know if I said it on the talk, but the oldest movie I think that I saw that was a Hollywood movie that had martial arts in it was Blood on the Sun with James Cagney, and that came out in 40.
Blood on the Sun?
Yeah, 46. I think it was
What?
46. Yeah, and he does judo in that movie. He actually learned judo, and there's a great, fantastic judo fight at the end, and they show him in a judo class in the beginning. I was really taken aback by it. I was like, wow.
I'm gonna look that up. Blood in the Sun.
Blood on the Sun. Yeah,
Blood
I believe it was
on the Sun. Sorry.
Yeah, Blood on. I believe it was 40. It's a post World War II movie. And
it was made in 46.
I think it was made in 46. I want to say 46 or 47.
Was it in color or black and white?
No, it's black and white.
Okay.
Yeah, and trying to think if there's anything. I don't think there's anyone else that's in it that's really notable. But I'm a movie file, so I'm really into, or cinema file, I guess I'm supposed to say. Right. But and I love James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, Errol Flynn, especially Tyrone Power, all those action heroes of the past.
It's funny, like I remember getting all these, like, because there was every I think every red-blooded American had their like kung fu flick phase, where like they just wanted to watch those, like, hey, I shall defeat you. I was really into Bruce Lee because like I used to think he was just like magic, you know what I'm saying? Because like there'll be scenes where he'll flex, and he'll go from this little man to like this the Hulk. And
right.
So I remember I'm getting all these movies, right? All these movies, and it's like I'm noticing too, like, it's funny, they keep spelling his name different. Interesting. So I believed, right? We're going with belief again. I just believe that all those movies I got were Bruce Lee films, like along with the actual films he was in.
Right.
But I realized the real reason why some of these names were spelled L-I or like,
right,
or whatever. So,
and there was Bruce Law, right?
Yeah. So apparently there was this phase, like like shortly after his tragic death, called Bruceploitation.
Yeah.
So if you looked like Bruce Lee, you're just gonna be like, hey, we're gonna make a Bruce Lee like film, but it's Bruce Lee, L.I., Bruce Lee. I don't know. But like this whole time, I'm over here thinking like, wow, he made quite a library. How do you have time to do all this shit?
Yeah, he was extremely prolific between the years that he was living and dead. Yeah. Uh, yeah, there's a lot. They used to have in my town, they had Kung Fu Theater on TV, and it would usually, I think it was before or after the horror movie of the afternoon on Saturday, but yeah, there'd be like Kung Fu Theater, and it would always be something like that.
Yeah, because like I ain't gonna lie to you though, like some of those movies were good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like Bruce L.I., he has some good movies. Like I'll never
Yeah,
forget. He played.
yeah. There's actually who is it? I think it was Quentin Tarantino did a whole thing on Bruce Lee. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I want to say it's him.
I thought he was actually. Are you talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No, he talked about him. I believe it was him. I hope I'm not getting them mixed up. But no, he had talked about how out of all of that era, there just like you said, there was some good stuff, and you don't want to throw it out just because of
Right.
that. But that comes down to evaluating things for what they are, right? That's why a lot of times, like I've definitely turned off more movies that were supposed to be, the greatest thing ever than I have just movies I stumbled upon that had people in it I'd never heard of.
Right.
Because they had an interesting premise and all that, and you start watching, go, wow, this is pretty good. And it's become, as I've gotten older, it's become more and more where my attitude is, if it's a $1 zillion movie, well, then it should hook me in the beginning and boom.
Right. It's because they got all these men on it. But
yeah,
a lot of those movies that are like the quote unquote best, like a lot of them I do like. However, I do kind of see like say for instance The Godfather. I love it. I understand it is definitely worth all the hype it gets. But I ain't gonna lie to you, like at the same time, I'll be having to remind myself at the end of the day, it's still a fucking gangster movie. Like your movie snob will look at your like a gangster movie being filmed today is like, ugh, what's this violent trash? But I'm just like, well, I mean, The Godfather would also be violent trash. Only it's 3 hours long and has Al Pacino. So
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah, there's a certain. The irony is also when people talk about the novel, when they talk about how great the novel is. I don't know if you've ever read it, but
I haven't read the novel. I do want to tackle it one day.
It's not that great of a novel.
I read one of Mario Puzo's books, but yeah, I haven't read the actual Godfather novel.
Yeah, I think personally, I've read everything he wrote except for The Dark Arena, which was his first one.
I just read him. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's actually more in the vein of kind of after that post Godfather era, where I think he dialed in exactly what people were looking for. But the novel itself, there's a lot of it.
A lot more sex scenes than I thought it was. I'm like, this is
yeah. So the Godfather has a whole thing about a particular female situation that I just couldn't believe that was the secondary plot. And it's completely left out of the movie.
Oh, okay. I really got
just know that the girl or the lady that Sonny is messing around with at the wedding.
Yeah.
Okay. That there's a whole story. She is like half the novel.
Oh shit.
Her story. Yeah.
Okay, so since we're on the subject of books, I believe you wrote a novel yourself.
What a segue. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
It's called Lady Dragon. The Lady Dragon? You said?
Lady Dragon of Chinatown. Yeah. So they
okay, so hold on. I just wanted I remember when I first read that title, I was just like, this sounds like like not to say you're doing it, but like, it sounds like something that like some racist writer would write, like in the 40s, like the Lady Dragon of Chinatown. But he'll
It's
just
meant
say a
to,
bunch of racist shit.
yeah, it's meant to
Look,
have a particular. I'm not gonna see if I have a picture over here. Uh,
audience, I was not joining the name. I was just
there you go. That's the
okay.
clown.
Okay, you was going for like that 40s noir kind of the lady
It's
dress.
more. It more has to do with that's a moniker, a derogatory term that's used for the main character, and
Oh,
she
okay.
sort of turns it around and adopts it as like, well, if you call me that, I'll
Labeling
and
people, as they
that's
call it.
me, but I'm bad, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of the way
Okay.
she kind of takes it and turns it around.
So what does the main character do your style or
Uh, she does because she does a mixture of things. I try not to get too. There's, I mean, I try to be a little generic with it because the last thing I wanted was for the casual reader to be like, I don't know what any of this is. This
right?
don't mean anything to me, and just throw
Let
it.
me tell you something. I'm one of those like well, there's some manga I have read, but I'm not gonna break my neck to read the manga. I will willingly wait years for the animation because I'm lazy like that. So I can only imagine like a book with no pictures about martial arts. And I'm like, okay, like she kicked him in the testicles and then reached for the pan and hit his friend. Like it's like you have to like have like the most descriptive language, right, to make it interesting.
So yeah, writing a fight scene is really tricky because and I don't know if I'm successful at it or not, but my goal was to make it so that whether if you understood some things, then you would get something out of it, maybe a little more than the average person that didn't. But the
Like
average
Easter
person
eggs
that
for
didn't
martial arts.
could still understand what was going on,
Right.
and sort of like when you watch a movie and you could be like, oh wow, he did an awesome sidekick, right? And and then your friend that doesn't know anything about it goes, wow, he kicked him really hard, right? It's
Yeah.
just the result is the same, but you got a little more because you understood something that you saw something in there, right? You could identify it or whatever. So I tried to do it like that. I don't know if I was successful or not. I hope I was. So,
Okay. Well, we'll
um,
definitely well, the audience will definitely be a judge of that. But are you willing to give like a little synopsis of the plot?
yeah, I tried. I'll try to keep it succinct because I tend to
You don't want
ramble.
to spoil us.
Yeah. So basically, she it's about this woman Maggie who we follow her through her childhood all the way up through adulthood, where she in this particular mythical Chinatown they don't let women study martial arts.
Hmm.
So she kind of does it on the sly through this teacher that sees potential in her. And then she eventually is able to become a master, but she can't open a school because she's not
Right.
supposed to be doing it anyway. So they kind of give her one, but not the other. And then she gets very upset by that, goes away from Chinatown for a long time, does all sorts of things, and then decides, you know what, I still want to open that school. And so she goes down there and decides she's going to open the school. They tell her no, and a whole lot of stuff ensues after that.
Okay. Okay. So how old is she when she tries to open the school?
She's like 20, early 20s, mid 20s.
Jesus Christ. What the fuck am I doing with my life? I'm 33 years old. I'm on a podcast. No, I'm just kidding. No, don't report me. Oh my god. TOS for that one. But anyway, but no, that's dope. Okay, so like is this like a present day Chinatown? I know you said mythical.
This is yeah. I said it in the it starts in the late 60s and it goes up to 79.
Okay, that's pretty specific there. So 60s through 70s. So
Yeah,
like,
so it's
did you have to do any like research on how like 60s life in Chinatown and all that?
not really because you got to remember how old I am. So
Oh,
most of this stuff was totally
how
in
old
my
are
friend.
you?
I'm 56.
Get the fuck out of here!
Yeah. So, I mean,
Wow.
I specifically I tried to choose, years that I was familiar with because that was when I was a kid, right?
Okay. So did you
And
you had a you had a Chinatown growing up? Because you're from
yeah, yeah, I'm
California.
from California, so we were really close
What
to
part?
Oakland Chinatown and San Francisco Chinatown.
Okay, okay. So you from
Yeah, like when I studied Shingi, I studied in Oakland Chinatown.
wow. Okay. So here's another myth that I want to ask you about. Is it true that it is looked down upon to teach Americans kung fu, at least back in those times? Like,
I don't know. I've heard that, and
because
but
according to the Bruce Lee biopic, they were like, "What are you
yeah,
doing teaching the white people our stuff?" So
I've
I don't know
heard,
if it
I've
was
heard that. I don't know. I haven't investigated that enough to find out reliably if that's true or not. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be necessarily because um, if you think about culturally all the things that any particular culture doesn't want to share with another one, and it doesn't have to be martial arts, it could be anything, right?
right,
Uh, you know, we like so and so, but they're different from us, so never show them this, whatever, whatever it is. And I just, just you think about it from your own background or people that you've known or whatever. That's not an uncommon thing. If you remember, even in the Godfather, they never really accept Tom because he's not Sicilian, right?
right,
So
right. But you know
he's
what?
kind of
But as the consigliere, he still had a lot of privilege. I mean, I used
he
to be
did,
scared.
but he did. But if you notice,
The way
he
he
did.
talked to Sonny, I'd be so scared. I'm like, "Yo, why are you yelling at Sonny? He can kill you."
But if
But
you notice, if it did not translate to the next administration,
mm,
right? He was bumped down to being he was Michael's lawyer in Vegas, and that was it, right?
mm,
And
okay,
hence all the chaos in Godfather 2. Uh, but I think that's a pretty common thing. So it doesn't seem outlandish to me, but I think that also probably is if, even if something could be generically true, it could also be not specifically
right,
adhered but to by one particular person, depending on because I mean, let's face it, populations are not monolithic, right?
right,
There's such nuance. So even if you have a generality that permeates maybe most of something, there's always going to be deviations, right? So I don't know about that one. That would be an interesting one to find out. I'm going to say if he said it, I'm going to I don't see any reason not to believe him,
mm,
right?
okay. Like I said, I just got that from the Bruce Lee biopic. You know, that's some of the
Yeah,
conspiracy theories behind
yeah.
it.
To your point, I've never actually had anyone like say that to me or anything.
Okay,
The
so
only thing, the only thing I ran into one time was I was studying with one teacher, and I wanted to learn something else, and as well, and the guy was like not into that at all. He's like, no, you're with that guy. You're with that guy. That's pretty old school.
okay, okay. Well, that's fair, I guess.
Yeah, and I understood it. I mean, and then later on when I became a teacher, I appreciated it. But yeah, it's so there's all sorts of little things, and then you also have to remember, um, with with something like this story, while there is things in there that are probably true. I
Oh,
mean,
Mr. Oh, real quick, Mr. Plaugher,
most of it I made up. So
can you post a link to your book into the comments and I
sure.
can pin it? Sorry, but go on
Yeah.
ahead though. I just wanted to make sure that happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, um, but yeah, but also when it comes down to, I think I even told you once that I had people that would ask me things that were in the book and ask me, they just assumed some things were true. And I was like, no, I made that up. And they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, I mean, these people don't exist, right? This place doesn't exist. The whole
Right,
thing's made up, right? So
like that.
again, I like to, if I was watching a documentary, I have a different standard than if
Oh, what'd you say?
That I
Huh?
want a shorter link, but that's a big link.
Ah,
So,
okay. Hmm. Big John wants to know how's the martial arts scene in California.
plentiful. I mean, you can study anything. You can literally study anything. Any esoteric. I was really spoiled from the standpoint of growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area. You had access to literally anything. Like I was really, my favorite food for the longest time was Afghani food.
Afghanistan.
Now, Afghani food,
Oh,
yeah, from Afghanistan. So I remember coming here and going, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna find any Afghani food. So
there's a good Moroccan place in Norcross. I'll be sure to DM you that.
okay, although very different from Afghani food,
Right,
but
right, yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying, if you want, that's like the most authentic Middle Eastern food I can think of right now. Like that's like it's.
yeah, there's
Oh,
so
well, that's
as
more
far
so
as
North African, but
yeah, I'd say definitely North African.
Minna.
Um,
Oh, there you go, Minna food. How about that?
um, what did I say? As far as, but like being in the Bay Area, you had access to, you could study anything, literally anything.
I bet this is
And
such a
it,
melting pot.
yeah, I mean, you could find a teacher that taught, you could just, you know, go, look up anything and go, I wonder if there's a guy that teaches that. I guarantee you there's a guy that teaches that. And so that was kind of it was that those types of things made it really a great place to certainly to grow up and to do anything.
And,
But that said, everything's becoming much more um, cosmopolitan. Everything is. Even Atlanta in the time I've been here has really changed. So I don't think I don't think it's things are locked in. I think everything's eventually gonna have you have the ability to see everything anywhere, right?
right, and I was gonna, damn, I lost it. Holy shit! But excuse me. What was I gonna ask? Fucking hey, it was in my mind. It was swimming in my head for the longest.
We had
And I
martial
was,
arts, food. We talked about
I
Afghanistan.
mean, it was martial arts related.
Okay.
God damn it. Um, okay. Now I remember. So, uh, earlier in the interview, he was talking about you wrote for magazines, and I remember like I was actually in Taekwondo for like a brief stint in my life. I made it to yellow belt, but that was it. Mom pulled me out. Couldn't afford it no more. But no, like I remember I was a part of the it was the ATA. I guess it stands
Okay.
for
Yeah,
American
that's a big
Taekwondo
organization.
Association,
Mhm.
but they had magazines. So I wonder, like, were there like and were there like certain organizations that you would write for, or just like anyone who would accept you?
No, I was my thing has always been to work with entities that I'm already interested in. Like I wrote for when I started doing some things for Kung Fu magazine, and I just would submit articles and things. But I was because I used to read it, and same with Black Belt, and same with the publisher that published that my qigong book. It was because I was those were the things I was reading, so it seemed logical to go there first. You
Right.
know.
Okay.
Also, I think I don't know a lot about Taekwondo, so I would have to if I was going to be doing something like that, it would be like I wouldn't be able to
I
write
mean,
about
well, I
it.
meant like when I said for any organization, I just meant like in general, like maybe organizations like associated with your style, like I don't know the Xi Chuan. I just said that so wrong. The
No, actually, what I enjoyed most about when I started doing stuff with Black Belt, what I enjoyed most was all the different people I got to talk to that did different things, and it was just, I could ask him anything. I mean, that was such a great thing to be able to talk to somebody and, and ask them, you could ask them anything and they would just tell you. I mean, that was fantastic. I interviewed some great authors, because I used to interview, my thing was I would try to focus on things that didn't get a lot of attention. So that could be authors that wrote things that not a lot of people were aware of, but I thought they were great books, or styles that people I didn't see a lot of. Like I liked kendo, and I wrote some articles on kendo, and there's some great people that do kendo, that has some great organizations online that do kendo. There's some great organizations here in Atlanta that do kendo, and but you don't see a lot with that, and so I was trying to focus on things that you didn't see a lot, rather than you know things that you could probably. I always figured, like, I didn't write about anything like having to do with MMA or anything like that, because
Right.
like I didn't keep up with it. I didn't know a lot about it, and I wasn't really into it. So, the nice thing about doing something like that was, I could focus on things that I was into. Like I got to talk to, trying to think of who. Well, I got to talk to Walter Hill, who's great director, because I really loved all of his movies, but especially his first movie, which was with Charles Bronson, where he's a bare knuckle fighter, and that was like a thrill of a lifetime. So I enjoyed talking to lots of different people, and like I said, kind of hopefully making people aware of things that they weren't aware of. I've tried to feature movies that people maybe hadn't seen, rather than do like an article, yet another article on some movie that everyone painfully aware of. I tried to, like, what about this? There's new stuff, right? Like,
Right. Just like you want to shine a light on,
yeah, like matter of fact, there's a great movie out with two incredible people, called Echo 8, and they're doing it's a trilogy now, and it's with Maria Tran and Takashi Hara, and that is something I think it's streaming everywhere now. I would go watch it. It was independently made. They came up with this original idea. It's got martial arts in it. They act in it. They wrote it, directed it. Did a fantastic job, and now they're doing two others, doing I think a prequel and then a sequel, and but when I saw Echo 8, I was like, that's awesome. Someone just put that together, and it looks great. I was excited. I wanted everyone to see that you didn't have to wait for someone that or heard of to come up with a movie. But also I think that spirit kind of comes more from back in the day, like when I was really young. The very first movie with martial arts in it that I was aware of was Billy Jack.
Billy Jack.
Billy Jack. Have you ever heard of Billy Jack?
That's my first time hearing about it today.
Okay, so Billy Jack, it was an independent film and made by the star Tom Laughlin. His whole family's in it. He directed it, wrote it, starred in it, made it on a shoestring budget. It ended up grossing a lot of money. It features Hapkido. That's the style that's in it. That's what he does. And he ended up making 4 of them. He made the first one, Born Losers. Then there's Billy Jack, Trial of Billy Jack, and Billy Jack Goes to Washington. So,
president?
no, it's kind of a takeoff on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Okay.
But Mr. Smith did kick people's butts. So, but that's so when that spirit though, I never got to interview Tom Laughlin. I got to interview one of his daughters. And I did an article about the history of that film, and but I was just like, so the more I knew about him and about him, how he made that movie, I was just so impressed. I mean, that's at a time where you had to rent a camera. You couldn't just shoot it with your phone. you had to rent a camera, you had to get permits, all this kind of stuff. Although
Right.
I don't think they, I think I've read somewhere and saw something that they didn't actually do a lot. Did a lot of guerrilla filmmaking where you just shoot it and run. So, uh, but I was really, so whenever I see somebody that's got that kind of spirit, that's trying to do something, you know, and because God knows all the forces are against you, right? I mean,
Right.
even what you're doing, right? Even with your podcast and or with my book, right? I mean, there's sometimes you feel like you're just screaming into the wilderness because there's so much that you're after. So I always try to, if I could, shine a light on things that people weren't aware of, and it
Well,
was, that was the best thing for me. That was something that I really enjoyed
yeah.
and still
And
enjoy.
and it's and Big John wanted to know what took you from the west to the south. But yeah, what brings you to Atlanta, Georgia? Yeah, Francesca.
uh, I came actually for a job. I had I
Oh,
I worked for a company that had in case you're wondering what this movie was, actually I'm putting it in the chat.
okay.
You can look it up, Echo 8. But I had a job and they had given me a couple of choices as far as a location. I'd been with them for a number of years and they wanted to open an office in different areas. And I chose to come here because I had come out here a few years before that because I had some family down in the Macon area. And I was familiar with it. And I always thought, you know what? I like it here. So came and been here ever since. Back in that was 2005, I think. Yeah,
Oh,
2005.
you've been here for a minute. Okay, I thought you
Yeah.
were like freshly, transplanted. Okay.
No, at my age, nothing is fresh.
Oh,
Everything's old.
oh, 05. Man.
Yeah, yeah, '05. So it's kind of neat because I've seen a lot of changes, and like I said, I've definitely seen like it's just in the time I've been here. There's been some huge changes in terms of it's really grown and become much more cosmopolitan, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, and
It's mainstream now, so it's not cool anymore.
yeah, I mean, if you, although I'll take it. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to, living in a place that's got a lot of people doing lots of different things. It tends to attract lots of things that could be of benefit to you. It's sort of like I had a friend that they wanted to live out in the middle of nowhere, and then they opened a business and it didn't do very well. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's nobody there. That's
Yeah,
why you say you like it because there's nobody there. Well, they're not gonna go from
it's out there. Yeah,
the city to drive to your place. So,
right.
for me, I've always when I see a lot of buildings and cars and traffic, that's a good thing because that means there's stuff happening. That means there's an opportunity there. If you're gonna find somebody that does something, it'll be there, right?
Yeah, but it's like the fucking parking. Oh my god! It's like, man, let me tell you, 'cause I had to drive to MomoCon one day, and I was just like, "What the fuck? $40?"
Yeah, I didn't. I always get dropped off. Have my wife drop me off, and then that way I don't have to deal with the parking. The times I did go there on my own, the
Well,
parking was really expensive.
well, I wonder, like, is your wife also into like like MomoCon stuff, or does she like drop you off
Yeah,
like nerd, like just enjoy your
possibly.
enjoy your dork fest? Oh no, like, cause like like that's how my grandma is. She just look at me like
Yeah,
cartoons and stuff. Like, yes, grandma,
I I laughed so hard I took these out of my ear. Yeah, no, I'm sure that's the sentiment, but no, she's incredibly supportive. So I can't. I mean, it's kind of nice to have in a way. It's nice to have someone that isn't interested because then you can have someone come pick you up, right?
hmm
Or drop you off. But no, she's supportive, but it's not really her thing, and a lot of stuff she does aren't really my thing. But I think you need a little bit of difference in order to to make it interesting. You know, I don't know what I would do if someone was just like me, because I think I'm probably pretty annoying at some point. So uh, I'd probably just annoy somebody else, right?
Yeah, hey man, we're all annoying to somebody, that's for sure. Yeah, it's well, we're coming up on the hour now. Mr. Noel, it's been a pleasure having you. I'd like to have you on the podcast again.
Absolutely, yeah. I was gonna say, if is there any burning questions from anybody?
Well, okay, I do have one burning question. However, you do not have to answer it if you don't want to. You can say pass if you want. Because I know this was a traumatizing event in your life, but can you go over, well, you talked about it in MomoCon, but can you go over what made you decide to take up self-defense in the first place?
Yeah, I don't know how much time you want to go into that,
Well,
but
you can take as long as you want, but this will be the last question.
yeah, so yeah, I was a victim of violent crime back in 1990. And I was at that point I was going to music school in Southern California in Hollywood, and I was going to be a musician because that's what I'd always wanted to do, was be a musician. I never wanted to be anything else. So, but then when that happened, that was a very one of those pivotal moments in life where you make some decisions, you know. And I was not in a psychological or emotional state where if I was going to have to do something in order
Right.
to not to be to be able to get through life. So a friend of mine introduced me to the style he did, and and I think I told you, he drove there and just said, well, here it is, and he went in, and I was just going to wait in the car. But then I got curious, and then I went in, and I got a really specific lesson from the teacher who put me, he let me put him in the situation I had been in, which was an awful situation, and with multiple opponents and a knife.
Mhm.
And he let me put him in that. And then he said, well, let me show you what you could do or what I would do or whatever. And he showed me something, and I didn't really have much faith in what he was going to be able to come up with. And he actually came up with something really good. And I was like, I was interested.
What
And
was the technique, if you don't mind going into it?
it would be really elaborate. I'd have to show
Uh,
you because it involves three people and a weapon. It's very specific. So usually when I teach, especially when I do a women's self defense or something, a lot of times they'll ask, and I can actually show them right there what he showed me. And because I got people and everything, and like there's no way I could do it in this format.
Gotcha.
You wouldn't be able to see anything, and it probably wouldn't make any sense.
Oh,
But he had asked me if I thought it worked, and I said, yeah, I think that would work, because I was very dubious, to put it lightly, about any effective martial art technique or something. And then and I didn't. And the one thing I really knew was that if carrying a weapon wasn't an option, because if I carried a weapon, I knew from my own experience, if I would have had a weapon, they would have used it on me. There's no
right.
way.
Yeah.
I would have just introduced a new weapon into the situation and went, oh, yeah, thanks. I mean, it's just, I think people overestimate what they're going to be doing with those weapons. So I started. I wasn't any good at it. It wasn't like I took to it like I took to it like fish to water, and I was knocking it out of the park. And I didn't do any of that. I was horrible. I was the worst at it. To this day, I feel like I was probably the worst person that ever studied it. Anything, because it takes me. I'm not a really physical person, and I was never really like coordinated or anything. I didn't play sports. I don't like sports. I don't follow sports. And so I had like no frame of reference, right? All I knew about push-ups was there were things you wanted to avoid in PE, and that was it. And here I was, busting out push-ups. And so it wasn't anything I was interested in necessarily, other than for the psychological things that I was going to get out of it. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't any good at it. It was the first couple years I studied. anything, I really was like, I don't want to do this. I didn't want to do it for a long time. It wasn't until much later that after doing it for maybe 3, 4 years, that I kind of went, all right, I'm starting to like this a little bit. And then it was even longer after that I felt like I, had any sort of, abilities or anything or nothing like that. But even in like the class I was in, like with the group of people that I was in, they were always better at it than me. One of my best friends, he would just learn it like that. And then my other best friend, he would learn it like that. And I was always the guy that'd be like, they'd say, "Oh yeah, look at so and so, he's doing great. Oh, look at so and so." And then it'd be like, "Plaugher, yeah, you need to work on that."
All right, always the guy is always the one.
Keep at it, buddy. So that was definitely me. I was, but you know what? It made me a good teacher because nothing came easy, and I had a lot of bad habits. I didn't understand it. I had it, so gave me the ability to be able to teach, because any problem anyone's ever had, I've had that problem, and any sort of way in to teach somebody something, I probably can teach it. The thing that you run into a lot of times when someone's really good at something is sometimes they're not very good at teaching it, because it just comes so naturally to them. Like I knew a guy that was really good at doing this one thing, and he would just kind of go, "Okay, it goes like this, do that." And I'd be like, "Well, I don't understand how that works." "Well, it goes like this. I just showed you."
Well,
he'd show you like maybe once,
I always heard the saying though. Well, I don't know if it's a real saying now, but I mean, I always heard that it's one thing to know something, but like you really have knowledge on something if you can actually teach it to someone else and make it, make sense to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Credit there.
Yeah, even when I was a musician, one of the first things they would tell you was, to get a student, because, if you want to be any good, you got to teach. And I was like, I don't want to teach anybody. And they were like, well, you'll never be all that good. And I was like, really? And it's very true, because it's counterintuitive to us as human beings, because we think that by teaching, by giving something, we feel like we're losing something. We feel like it's a zero-sum game. If I give you something, then I'm going to lose what I just gave you. It's the opposite. If I give you something, I get something else. It just it's like an endless circle,
Yeah, it's like, you get that satisfaction of teaching somebody. And also it's like you're honing your own skills.
Yeah, exactly. The more
to, just because you're teaching somebody else, so you're thinking of new ways to make it more effective.
There's plenty of times where I've said something to somebody and wrote it down afterwards and went, I can't believe I came up with that. That's great. And just, run down. That's why I keep a notebook, right? I always have a notebook with me. Because a lot of times someone will say something to me, or I'll hear something, or I'll know something will happen, whatever. And you can collect it. You can go, oh, that's awesome. I'll keep that. And the nice thing is the act of like someone said, "Oh, that means you got to have all those notebooks." Like, no, the act of writing something down pretty much puts it in your
helps to lock it in.
Yeah, puts it in your consciousness. Like, if you write something down, generally, if I write something down, I'll write it down to remember it. I almost never look at it, because you don't really need to a lot of times, unless it's a massive amount of information. But generally you can remember most things it's just the act. It's almost like that act puts it in your subconscious and just leaves it there, and you can
kind of like learning by doing. You know what I mean?
It gives you that. I don't know if I answered that question sufficiently for everybody, but
you definitely went over your origin story. but I hate that you had to have gone through that. I'm glad you survived. Me
too.
Into more detail at MomoCon, and it definitely was a little gruesome. But anyway, Mr. Plaugher, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you were here to talk to me. And like I said, I hope to have you on the podcast again. Hopefully I run into you in the city.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking me to be on, because I really appreciate it and giving me the opportunity to talk about everything. So thank you so much. And hopefully if anyone else has any questions or whatever, they'll review it or ask you or something.
All right. All right, everybody. We've been with Noel Plaugher. Like I said, get his book. We put his Amazon link in the comment sections. Gosh darn words. Anyway, Late Dragon of Chinatown. All
That's
right.
it.
And also look into the style. The you say it again?
Xing Yi Xuan.
Xing Yi Xuan. Look into it. We also put the spelling in the comments section. So if you want to research that style, hey, you can thank Mr. Plaugher for putting you on. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Check it out. And if they want to know more, they can always hit me up.
All right. Peace out, everyone.
All right. Thank you.